Okay, today's 27th of July, 2025, and today we're up to the ninth section in Liber Secundus, second volume of the Red Book, entitled Second Day. And I will just check the image briefly. He sort of goes much deeper into this process throughout. Like Liber Secundus is many times longer than the Liber Primus, and um, the images become much more detailed, bigger, and more terrifying, I would say. There's also, he's just working with more material, you know. I mean, like I said, he got the entirety of psychological types, which is like 600-page book that took him a long time to write, out of just 30 pages of three different visions in the first volume. And so this is kind of like, it really forms the entire background of the entire rest of his work, which took a lifetime to produce. So there's a lot that's happening and a lot that he's taking from each of these visions. So anyway, second day. No dream gave me the saving word. The handwritten draft has instead, I have slept little, unclear dreams upset me more than they have prompted the redeeming word. Isdubar lay silent and stiff all night until daybreak, January 9, 1914. I paced the mountain ridge, pondering, and looked back to my western lands, where there is so much knowledge and so much possibility of help. I love Isdubar, and I do not want him to wither away miserably. But where should help come from? No one will travel the hot cold path. And I'm afraid to return to that path. And in the east, was there possibly help there? But what about the unknown dangers that loomed there? I do not want to go blind. What use would that be to Isdubar? I cannot carry this lamed one as a blind man either. Yes, if I were powerful like Isdubar. What use is science here? Toward evening, I went up to Isdubar and spoke to him. Isdubar, my prince, listen, I will not let you decline. The second evening is falling. We have no food, and we are bound to die if I cannot find help. We cannot expect any help from the west, but help is possible from the east. Did you meet anyone on your way whom we could call on for help? Isdubar, let it be. May death come when it will. My heart bleeds at the thought of leaving you here without having done the utmost to help you. Isdubar, what help is your magical power to you? If you were strong, as I am, you could carry me, but your poison can only destroy and not help. If we were in my land, swift wagons could bring us help. Isdubar, if we were in my land, your poisoned barb would not have reached me. Tell me, do you know of no help from the side of the east? Isdubar, the way there is long and lonely, and when you reach the plains after crossing the mountains, you will meet the powerful sun, which will blind you. But what if I wandered by night, and if I sheltered from the sun during the day? Isdubar, in the night all the serpents and dragons crawl out of their holes, and you, unarmed, will inevitably fall victim to them. Let it be. How would this help? My legs have withered and are numb. I prefer not to bring home the booty of this journey. Should I not risk everything? Isdubar, useless. Nothing is gained if you die. Let me think it over a bit. Perhaps a saving thought will yet come to me. I withdrew and sat down on a high rock above on the ridge of the mountain, and this speech began in me. Great Isdubar, you are in a hopeless position, and I no less. The draft continues. Thus spoke another voice in me, like an echo. What can be done? It is not always necessary to act, but sometimes thinking is better. I am basically convinced that Isdubar is hardly real in the ordinary sense, but is a fantasy. It would help if the situation were considered from another angle. Considered. It is remarkable that even here thoughts echo. One must be quite alone. But this will hardly last. He will, of course, not accept that he is a fantasy, but instead claim that he is completely real and that he can only be helped in a real way. Nevertheless, it would be worth trying this means once. I will appeal to him. I, my prince, powerful one, listen. A thought came to me that might save us. I think that you are not real at all. I think that I think that you are not at all real, but only a fantasy. I think that you are not at all real, but only a fantasy. Isjabar, I am terrified by this thought. It is murderous. Do you even mean to declare me unreal, now that you have lamed me so pitifully? Perhaps I have not made myself clear enough, and have spoken too much in the language of the Western lands. I do not mean to say that you are not real at all, of course, but only as real as a fantasy. If you could accept this, much would be gained. Isdabar, what would be gained by this? You are a tormenting devil. I, pitiful one, I will not torment you. The hand of the doctor does not seek to torment, even if it causes grief. Can you really not accept that you are a fantasy? Isdabar, woe betide me. In what magic do you want to entangle me? Should it help me if I take myself for a fantasy? I, you know that the name one bears means a lot. You also know that one often gives the sick new names to heal them. For with the new name, they come by a new essence. Your name is your essence. Isdabar, you are right. Our priests also say this. I, so are you prepared to admit that you are a fantasy? Isdabar, if it helps, yes. The inner voice now spoke to me as follows. While admittedly he is a fantasy now, the situation remains extremely complex. A fantasy cannot be simply negated and treated with resignation either. It calls for action. Anyway, he is a fantasy, and thus considerably more volatile. I think I can see a way forward. I can take him on my back for now. I went to Isdubar and said to him, a way has been found. You have become light, lighter than a feather. Now I can carry you. I put my arms round him and lift him up from the ground. He is lighter than air, and I struggle to keep my feet on the ground, since my load lifts me up into the air. Isdubar, that was a masterstroke. Where are you carrying me? I'm going to carry you down into the Western land. My comrades will happily accommodate such a large fantasy. Once we have crossed the mountains and have reached the houses of hospitable men, I can calmly go about finding a means to restore you completely again. Carrying him on my back, I climbed down the small rock path with great care, more in danger of being whirled aloft by the wind than of losing balance because of my load and plunging down the mountainside. I hang on to my all too lightweight load. Finally, we reach the bottom of the valley and the way of the hot and cold pain. By this time, I am blown by a whistling east wind down through the narrow rocks and across the fields toward inhabited places, making no contact with the painful way. Spurred on, I hasten through beautiful lands. I see two people ahead of me, Ammonius and the Red One. When we are right behind them, they turn round and run off into the fields with horrified cries. I must have proved a strange sight indeed. Isdubar, who are these misshapen ones? Are these your comrades? Aye, these are not men, they are so-called relics of the past, which one still often encounters in the Western lands. They used to be very important. They're now mostly they're now used mostly as shepherds. Izdubar, what a wondrous country. But look, isn't that a town? Don't you want to go there? I, no, God forbid, I don't want a crowd together, since the enlightened live there. Can't you smell them? They're actually dangerous, since they cook the strongest poisons from which even I must protect myself. The people there are totally paralyzed, wrapped in a brown, poisonous vapor, and can only move with artificial means. But you need not worry, night has almost fallen and no one will see us. But you need not worry, night has almost fallen and no one will see us. Isn't that a town? Don't you want to go there? No, God forbid, I don't want a crowd together, since the enlightened live there. Can't you smell them? Can't you smell them? They're actually dangerous, since they cook the strongest poisons, from which even I must protect myself. The people there are totally paralyzed, wrapped in a brown poisonous vapor, and can only move with artificial means. But you need not worry. Night has almost fallen and no one will see us. Moreover, no one would admit to having seen me. No one would admit to having seen me. I know an out-of-the-way house here. I have close friends there who will take us in for the night. Izdubar and I come to a quiet, dark garden and a secluded house. I hide Izdubar under the drooping branches of a tree, go up to the door of the house, and knock. I ponder the door. It is much too small. I will never be able to get Izdubar through it. Yet, a fantasy takes up no space. Why did this excellent thought not occur to me earlier? I return to the garden and with no difficulty squeeze Izdubar into the size of an egg and put him in my pocket. Then I walk into the welcoming house where Izdubar should find healing. There is now commentary, which begins. Hang on, there may be an image first. I'm just checking. Doesn't seem so. Okay. So what follows? It starts with a footnote which reads, this refers, I think this meaning, let's find out. This refers to a scene in the text describing how Jung reduced Izdubar to the size of an egg so he could secretly carry Izdubar into the house and enable his healing. Jung said to Emilia Jaff concerning these sections that some of the fantasies were driven by fear, such as the chapter on the devil and the chapter on Gilgamesh Izdubar. From one perspective, it was stupid that he had to find a way to help the giant, but he felt that if he didn't do so, he would have failed. He paid for the ridiculous solution through realizing that he had captured a god. Many of these fantasies were a hellish combination of the sublime and the ridiculous. Anyway, quote, thus my God found salvation. He was saved precisely by what one would actually consider fatal, namely by declaring him a figment of the imagination. How often has it been assumed that the gods have been brought to their end in this way? In the draft, this sentence reads, like many other gods and on numerous previous occasions, the god was declared to be a fantasy, and it was thus assumed that he had been dealt with. How often has it been assumed that the gods have been brought to their end in this way? This was obviously a serious mistake, since this was precisely what saved the god. He did not pass away, but became a living fantasy, whose workings I could feel on my own body. My inherent heaviness faded. My inherent heaviness faded, and the hot and cold way of pain no longer burned and froze my soles. The weight no longer kept me pressed to the ground, but instead the wind carried me lightly like a feather, while I carried the giant. The draft continues. We men apparently believed that there is no such thing as a fantasy, and if we declared something to be fantastic, then it would be well and truly destroyed. One used to believe that one could murder a god, but the god was saved. One used to believe that one could murder a god, but the god was saved. He forged a new axe in the fire and plunged again into the flood of light of the east to resume his ancient cycle. This seems to refer to the following chapter. But we clever men crept around, lamed and poisoned, and did not even know that we lacked something. But I loved my God and took him to the house of men, since I was convinced that he also really lived as a fantasy, and should therefore not be left behind, wounded and sick. And hence I experienced the miracle of my body losing its heaviness, while I burdened myself with the God. And hence I experienced the miracle of my body losing its heaviness, when I burdened myself with the God. Saint Christopher, the giant, bore his burden with difficulty, despite the fact that he bore only the Christ child. Saint Christopher, Greek for Christ bearer, was a martyr in the 3rd century. According to legend, he had sought a hermit to inquire as to how he could serve Jesus. The hermit suggested he help carry people across a dangerous crossing in a river, which he did. On one occasion, a small child asked to be taken across. He found that the child was heavier than anyone else, and the child revealed himself to be Christ, bearing the sins of the world. Christopher. St. Christopher the giant bore his burden with difficulty, despite the fact that he bore only the Christ child. But I was as small as a child and bore a giant, and yet my burden lifted me up. The Christ child became an easy burden for the giant Christopher, since Christ himself said, "My yoke is sweet and my burden is light." Matthew 11:30. We should not bear Christ as he is unbearable, but we should be Christ's. We should not bear Christ as he is unbearable, but we should be Christ's. For then our yoke is sweet and our burden easy. This tangible and apparent world is one reality, but fantasy is the other reality. So long as we leave the God outside us, apparent and tangible, so long as we leave the God outside us, apparent and tangible, he is unbearable and hopeless. But if we turn the God into fantasy, he is in us and is easy to bear. The God outside us increases the weight of everything heavy. While the God within us lightens everything heavy. Hence all Christophers have stooped backs and short breath, since the world is heavy. Many have wanted to get help for their sick God, and were then devoured by the serpents and dragons lurking on the way to the land of the sun. They perished in the overbright day. Many have wanted to get help for their sick god and were then devoured by the serpents and dragons lurking on the way to the land of the sun. They perished in the overbright day and have become dark men since their eyes have been blinded. Now they go around like shadows and speak of the light, but see little. But their God is in everything that they do not see. He is in the dark western lands, and he sharpens seeing eyes, and he assists those cooking the poison, and he guides serpents to the heels of the blind perpetrators. But their God is in everything that they do not see. He is in the dark western lands, and he sharpens seeing eyes. And he assists those cooking the poison, and he guides serpents to the heels of the blind perpetrators. Therefore, if you are clever, take the God with you, then you know where he is. If you do not have him with you in the western lands, he will come running to you at night with clanking armor and a crushing battle axe. If you do not have him with you in the land of the dawn, then you will step unawares on the divine worm who awaits your unsuspecting heel. You gain everything from the God whom you bear, but not his weapon, since he crushed it. He who conquers needs weapons, but what else do you want to conquer? You cannot conquer more than the earth. And what is the earth? It is round all over and hangs like a drop in the cosmos. You will not reach the sun, and your power will not even extend to the barren moon, nor will you will not reach the sun, and your power will not even extend to the barren moon. You will conquer neither the sea, nor the snow on the poles, nor the sands of the desert, but only a few spots on the green earth. You will not conquer anything for any length of time. Your power will turn into dust tomorrow, for above all, at the very least, you must conquer death. So do not be a fool. Throw down your weapon. God himself smashed his weapon. Armor is enough to protect you from fools who still suffer from the need to conquer. God's armor will make you invulnerable and invisible to the worst fools. Take your God with you. Bear him down to your dark land, where people live who rub their eyes each morning and yet always see only the same thing and never anything else. Bring your God down to the haze pregnant with poison, but not like those blinded ones who try to illuminate the darkness with lanterns which it does not comprehend. Bring your God down to the haze pregnant with poison, but not like those blinded ones who try to illuminate the darkness with lanterns which it does not comprehend. Instead, secretly carry your God to a hospitable roof. The huts of men are small, and they cannot welcome the God despite their hospitality and willingness. Hence, do not wait until rawly, bungling hands of men hack your God to pieces, but embrace him again, lovingly, until he has taken on the form of his first beginning. Let no human eye see the much-loved, terribly splendid one in the state of his illness and lack of power. Consider that your fellow men are animals without knowing it. So long as they go to pasture, or lie in the sun, or suckle their young, or mate with each other, they are beautiful and harmless creatures of dark Mother Earth. But if the God appears, they begin to rave, since the nearness of God makes people rave. They tremble with fear and fury and suddenly attack one another in fratricidal struggles, since one senses the approaching god in the other. Since one senses the approaching god in the other. So conceal the god that you have taken with you. Let them rave and maul each other. Your voice is too weak for those raging to be able to hear. Thus do not speak and do not show the god, but sit in a solitary place and sing incantations in the ancient manner. Set the egg before you, the god in his beginning, and behold it, and incubate it with the magical warmth of your gaze. Set the egg before you, the god in his beginning, and behold it, and incubate it with the magical warmth of your gaze. Here the incantations begin. That was the 9th section in Liber Secundus, second volume of the Red Book, entitled Second Day.